In celebration of the 50th anniversary of Sydney Bank's Enlightened Experience, Lindsey Elliot, a change coach from Brighton in the UK, is going to share her experience with us. So welcome, Lindsey.
Hello. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Could you briefly share what your life looked like before you had your first insight into the three principles?
Yeah, so I was someone who was relatively sort of anxious and worried in childhood. And that was mostly around kind of like my parents dying. And then that sort of moved into in my teenage years being anxious and worried about how other people perceived me and upsetting other people or hurting other people. So a lot of kind of worrying about how I came across and other people's feelings. And that sort of then morphed into quite a long sort of like self-help exploration, lots of different modalities, lots of exploring spirituality through many different lenses. But the overriding sense of that time, which was many years, which was probably like 20, 25 years, was just this nagging feeling that there was something wrong with me that needed fixing. And all of the sort of tools and techniques and some of the stuff I learned, of course, was amazingly helpful, but nothing really actually, not even permanently, but kind of for any period of time, made me feel any better about myself. So, like from the outside, I think people would have thought, oh, she's quite confident and she's okay. And, but actually on the inside, there was this sort of underlying feeling that there was something wrong with me and that I needed to fix that. So, yeah, and it was really my understanding. And there was a lot of pushing and forcing and busyness and, well, yeah, things that went along with lots of doing to try to make myself feel better about myself. So, yeah, and really that slowly but surely began to change once I discovered the three principles.
I love that. So what was your insight, or what were the big insights that you had?
So one of the, don't think this was necessarily my first insight, but it was my big insight about my feeling of self-worth and self-esteem. I just began to notice as I began to understand more about the nature of thought. So for me, that was like that's sort of like the principle that was sort of the root in, because I think because I'd explored a lot of spirituality, I'd done a lot of meditation, I'd done a lot of energy work. I already felt that I really knew there was this universal presence, this mind, God, whatever you want to call it. I'd had many very direct experiences of that. So for me, and of consciousness and of expanding my consciousness and then it kind of contracting back down. But really for me, the principle that was the most liberating was thought, because I didn't understand, or I misunderstood that I wasn't my thinking. And so when I just sort of slowly over time saw that my mind, the voice, the thought, thoughts that I heard in my head told me wildly different things and actually polar opposite things about me. So sometimes it would talk to me and it would tell me how wonderfully I was doing in my business and what a great parent I was, and all that went really well, and you're a really supportive friend and a great wife. It was just, because minds love to just talk about you all the time. And I saw all of this thinking about how I was doing well in life. And then I saw on the other side all of this thinking about how I wasn't, how I was a rubbish parent and my business wasn't going well. And sometimes I was a rubbish wife and not a great daughter, and all of this really polar opposite experience. And when I was able to step back and see that, I was like, well, it can't both be true. So which one is it then? And then I realized, well, none of it was true, because none of it was who I really am. All of that place that I touched in the meditation and the energy work and the kind of the consciousness and the mind, well, that was who I really was. And this was just my temporary human experience talking to me. And that was really the beginning of seeing that the self-esteem and the confidence and the worthiness that I'd been looking for in my experience, well, it was never going to be there. It was always just inside of me. So the kind of innate well-being piece of the three principles was one of the last things that I kind of finally clicked into place. But it was really, that was the beginning of seeing, oh, it's not in my mind, it's not in my thinking, my habitual personal mind. That's not where I'm going to find it.
I love that. And I guess you've started to answer this, but you know, how's your life changed since you've gained this understanding of the principles?
Well, personally, it's meant I've given up quite a lifelong habit that I had that I used to feel awful about. I've also stopped trying to fix myself.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes that experience comes off course because I'm human. Sometimes I still have the thinking and the thoughts that come through that say, oh, you're not doing well enough there. But most of the time I catch it now. And there's just much less seeking outside of myself to fix myself. And therefore, because there was so much of my time and my energy and my money as well went into trying to fix myself, now that I know that that isn't the place to look, and it isn't even anything that can happen, it's not even necessary, there's much more peace within my daily experience, within my mind, and just a very deep knowing that I am okay and that everybody else is okay. And for many years, that looked like a really good idea to me. That looked like, that's lovely. That's lovely for those people who know they're okay. And now I see the universality of that. And I didn't think I ever really would. So even though I can get caught up in my human experience, because we do, you know, thought's amazing. It's made to look very real. And so sometimes I can get caught up in that, but there's this, whereas like my underlying place I kind of used to live from was this place of sort of insecurity and not feeling good enough, I now see my home base as knowing I'm okay and knowing that so that beautiful quote that is so amazing from Sydney Banks about not being afraid of your experience, that's it for me. That's the knowing where my experience is coming from has helped me just to have this place where I know I can always come back to, regardless of what's happening up here in my psychology and my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And also in my business, I was doing a few different modalities before I discovered this, and now I just exclusively coach in this because for me, it's the clearest, most simplest, most direct way to point people to the truth of how they're working. So I couldn't not move into that being how I then work because I've worked one-to-one with people for 15 years. And once you see something for yourself and you know it's the most long-lasting way of helping people as well, this is the thing, it's once you've got this understanding, you take it everywhere with you.
Yeah. Which leads me really nicely into the last question, which is, you know, how do you see this understanding changing the field of mental health and our understanding of the human spirit?
Well, I think one of the biggest potentials that I see for this, I mean, not only is really around this kind of self-esteem piece in two ways, really. I think, well, there's two things about it, sort of in relationships, because if everybody could know that other people can't make them feel anything, their experience is always coming through their thought, through the power and principle of thought, well, there would be much more peace in the world. It just couldn't not happen. So that, I think, would be the biggest thing that I think could be helpful in the world right now.
I love that. Lindsey, what I really heard was when you were saying about the misunderstanding that we are our thinking and that all that thinking just cannot be true. That just really sat with me. Thank you so much for being part of this Three Principles celebration.